Okay, everyone. Sorry about the little delay there. But I want to talk about something that is seemingly noticeable in a lot of shows, and Disney in particular. And I want to touch on something that I talked about in my video of the cartoon, cartoon flashback, a cartoon episode flashback, A Traitor Among Us. Now, I mentioned the fact that it basically, Traitor Among Us basically kind of planted the seeds, if not hinted at the fact that had the series continued, and thus continues in the minds and, imaginative minds of all the fans, that we might have seen some romance occur. And that it would have led to a couple of preferences. You could have had, particularly from this episode, you could have had the preference, and this is where, again, Disney gives fans that option to really kind of think, all right, who could have been, what could have been. And to me, they give the preference basically of, that you could go in one way or another. For example, you have basically the potential of two pairings for the character of Mallory. Mallory and Duke, and Mallory and Nosedive. Now, as I've mentioned before, I want to elaborate on this more. The reason some fans would choose Mallory to go with Duke is it gives them that kind of like Gambit rogue kind of thing from X-Men. The suave, debonair, kind of like dark-like character, smooth talker, if you will, ends up basically getting the good-looking girl. He ends up getting the Southern Belle, if you will, which of course some might view Mallory as. And that's a good thing if you want to look at it like that. That's a good thing. But then again, there's also the potential of what many fans perceived could have been the inevitable, and that's Nosedive in Mallory. Now some might say, that's crazy. There's no way that would happen. It's true. There is no way it probably could have happened. But then again, maybe it would have. I look at one show in particular that I have on DVD, and that's Jim Lee's Wildcats animated show. Now, it took up until, and basically, Jim Lee's Wildcats kind of followed the same pattern as Mighty Ducks, except they only had 13 episodes less than Mighty Ducks. Point is, it took about almost to the end of the series where we finally had Grifter, and Zealot get together. And you pretty much knew they had planted the seeds for that. Now, some of you might say, well, Grifter's kind of like Duke. Both kind of former thieves. Zealot and Mallory like the war. Yeah, I get that. But they kind of planted the seeds, yet we didn't know it. And here's the thing. No one would have expected Grifter to be with Zealot. No one would have seen that coming. If you've never paid attention to a Wildcats comic, you wouldn't have seen that coming. If this was the way you were introduced to Jim Lee's Wildcats through the animated show for the first time, you never saw that coming. And like I said, even if you didn't read the comics, you didn't see it coming. However, if you did read the comics, you did see it coming. But if you didn't read the comics, you didn't see it coming. I know, it kind of sounds confusing, right? Sounds a little confusing, if you will. Sounds a little confusing. But it's true. You never saw, if Wildcats, the cartoon series, was the first time you got introduced to Jim Lee's Wildcats characters, you never saw Grifter and Zelly getting together at the end. You never saw it coming. And the reason I kind of compare this to Nosedive and Mallory is because had the series continued, in my opinion, those two would have ended up getting together, and whether you liked it or not, or saw it coming or not, it would have happened. Here's why I say that. You've got so many hints, Easter eggs, if you will. You know, excuse me, sorry for that pause, I was thinking. You have so many Easter eggs, if you will, planted throughout the series. You know, planted throughout the series. That it was basically like a guessing game for a lot of you. For me, when I look back at the series, and even back then, I always viewed that as a possibility. Now, of course, I was going to school, going to high school at the time when the show came out, so I really didn't think that much about it. But when I got older and I really started to look back at the series and, you know, find out that, of course, find out that it's got a big cult following, if you will, that I found out that I'm probably not the only one that when I look back at the series, kind of felt that Nosedive and Mallory would be compatible in a sense. It's the old saying of opposites attract, right? Well, that's exactly what Mallory and Nosedive would have been. Opposites attract. And fortunately for me, I found out I was not the only one. In fact, there are many, among many fans that feel the same way. And if you want a good example, I'll give you one from fan art perspective. If you look down here, I don't know if I can get a close-up for that for you guys, without the blurriness. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. Hold on. Let me see if I can get up close to that. Where is it? Where is it? There it is. A little out of focused. Kind of got to focus in a little bit. But you see what I mean here? Look at this fan art here. And then again, to kind of, stand by that, if you will. Even Disney hinted at, kind of threw an Easter egg right at the beginning of the intro. I mean, first you see the names, like Wild Wing, Nosedive. Who's after Nosedive when they get introduced? Mallory. And then take a look at the ending of the intro. Look at that. They could have easily put Tanya here and Mallory here, right? Instead, they put Tanya near Nosedive, Mallory near... they could have put Tanya near Nosedive, Mallory near Wild Wing, but they didn't. Disney hinted at it right from the intro, in my opinion. That's what they did. That's what they did, in my opinion. They hinted at it right with the intro. I mean, it's like after Nosedive, you would have Mallory, in a sense. So, to me, it's like Disney was hinting at it. And then when you take a look at Traitor Among Us, who does Mallory kind of get at the most when Duke and Nosedive are trying to fight for the affection of Lucretia DeCoy before they even knew she was a spy? Who does she kind of get at the most? Nosedive. Exactly, Nosedive. She says something about she may want to throw up. You know, she slaps him across on the back of the head. And then she mentions that he wanted to date her. So, hello? And then when she does a little femme fatale thing at the end before she goes to the mall, who waves to her and waves back? Exactly. You see, to me, Disney always throws these little hints, these little Easter eggs in these kind of shows, and Mighty Ducks was no exemption. Mighty Ducks was no exemption to that rule. I mean, even when you took a look at the episode Duck Hard, it kind of gave you the idea that maybe they were planting the seeds, not just for maybe if the show had continued, not just for this possibility had the show continued, but also in the fans' minds of a possible Tanya Wildwing. Yeah. Now I know some of you will argue and you will say, well, Duke's more compatible for Mallory. Yeah, I'm not going to deny that. Everybody's got their own kind of flavor. I'm just coming out and let you guys know from what I have seen through a lot of hints and Easter eggs throughout the entire series. I mean, heck, I have the episode, what is it? Mondo Man. Who's in the comic book store leaning near the glass while Nosedive is talking with Thrash and Mook? Mallory. Who's the one that goes with Mallory even if Wildwing tells him to? Who's the one that basically, is with Mallory throughout the entire series of the entire episode of Buzz Blitzman Mighty Duck? Nosedive. Now you might say, well, that's just because he was ordered. Yeah, that's true. But who rode with Mallory and Buzz in the Arrow Wing at the end? Nosedive. See, the point is you got all these examples here. You got all these examples. And then at the end of, what is it? I'm trying to think. Monster Rally, which I just watched a little bit of. At the end of that episode, you have Mallory sitting on top of the couch in their headquarters. And who's sitting, not right next to her, but on the same couch. No one else is sitting there unless I missed something. But no one else is sitting there. Nosedive. Exactly. You see, there are hints there. There are hints. I mean, you take a look at Bringing Down Baby, if you will. Or Bringing Up Baby, whatever it's called. Mallory actually gets a little sympathetic when she sees a kind of like, I don't like a motherly look or an affectionate look when that baby saurian or whatever it is gets attached, attaches itself, if you will, to Nosedive. So to me, you have all these hints there. And now you might say, well, Tanya felt the same way. True. But it was Mallory, I think, that looked at Tanya when that moment happened to kind of see if she was feeling the same thing when they saw what Nosedive, this little moment with Nosedive. You get what I'm saying? There are hints there. They were hints. Huge hints. And I'm not lying about it. I'm not. I'm not lying about it whatsoever. I mean, from my honest opinion, and for anybody that's watched the show, you know I'm telling the truth. You know I'm telling the truth. I've seen it with my own eyes. You've seen it with your own eyes. And it's something that cannot be denied. And again, just for the fact, I mean, Huey Toonmore and Rowdy Review kind of mentioned it best. When the series ended in this way it did, it opened up the imaginations for the fans to continue the adventures through webcomics, fan fiction stories. And believe me, I've seen my share of fan fiction stories when it comes to the Mighty Ducks. And here's the thing. Here's the thing about it. Here's the thing. This one person, even though they did an April Fool's joke at the end, kind of gave us that little twist at the end of the story. They did a story on fanfiction called fanfiction.net in the cartoon section with Mighty Ducks. They did one called Prankster and the Soldier. Now, until you got to the last chapter, and had you taken out, and had you altered that chapter in a sense, you wouldn't have known the fact that it was an April Fool's story. It was a twist. It was a cliffhanger. But basically, it was centered right on Mallory and Nosedive. And when you read the story, and I read it, it makes you see, I mean, even if they knew it was a joke, even if they both knew they were playing a prank, or setting up a big prank for April Fools, they made you believe, this writer went balls out and made you believe Eve. Because I looked at it and it's like I was reading an actual episode. I just imagined in my mind, I was reading an actual episode. Just alter certain words to make it like a Disney episode. But the way it was done was so believable. Was so huge. Was so believable, so huge in my opinion, that even if it was perceived at the at the end with the April Fool's twist of, hey, you know, it's a joke kind of deal, that was nothing more than a joke, then to me, what more can you say? I mean, to me, this is exactly, in my opinion, this is exactly, like I said, in my opinion, the reason why I believe Nosedive and Mallory were going to end up together had Disney said, hey, let's continue the show, let's get another 13 episodes out there, or another 26 episodes out there, and go from there. Had they decided to go the Goliath, the Goggles route, and say, hey, let's do one more season of 26 episodes, 13 on the weekdays, or the Fridays, if you will, Friday, Mondays, and 13 on Saturdays, people would have really connected with it, in my opinion. They really would have enjoyed it. And I apologize, that's the city truck out there. I apologize, that's the city truck out there gathering up the garden, the grass cans, if you will, the green cans of grass and leaves, whatever. But point is, Disney, to me, I believe, in my opinion as a fan, would have done it. But that is the one good thing about the show ending the way it did. It left the imagination for the fans to go in that direction. It allowed the fans to choose a preference. It allowed the fans to choose a preference of who they would want Mallory to be with, or who they'd want Tanya to be with. It opened that door. It opened the door to the fact that there's one person on DeviantArt. There's one person on DeviantArt that's doing a huge webcomic called Breakaway or something like that, and it's a Mighty Ducks comic. So to me, I truly believe, folks. And again, I know I sound like a broken record, but I truly believe Disney would have done it. It's no lie, in my opinion. I truly believe Disney would have taken that step. They would have given into the Mallory Nosedive deal. In fact, you even have one little short story. It's a Valentine's story that was done this year. And it's no April Fool's joke. It's not an April Fool's. It's not a parody. It's not like, hey, we got you kind of deal. No. It's actually legit. And this, again, is part of that open door thing that the series did. The fact that this was a straight-up Mallory Dive romantic Valentine's Day story. Because here's the deal. You had Duke married, in this writer's world, you had Duke married to the older sister of Dive and Wildwing. Yeah, Duke was basically now an in-law to the, I guess they're called the Flash Blade family. So, but anyway, long story short, basically this was a straightforward, romantic Valentine's thing between Mal and Dive. And why? Because at the end was exactly what any woman wants to see any girlfriend wants to see her boyfriend do in front of her, and that's propose. It's So, nice little shipping there. And they acknowledge our Mallory Nosedive shippers. They do. They acknowledge it. I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't mind who they would have put Duke, if they would have done Duke Mallory. I wouldn't have minded if they did Tanya Nosedive. I wouldn't have minded if they did Mallory Wild Wing. I wouldn't have minded if they did Wild Wing Tanya. I wouldn't have minded if they brought Lucretia back, redeemed her, and put her with Duke. I wouldn't have minded. But the point is, in my opinion, as a fan, I believe they would have gone in the direction, and that's why I support a Dive Mallory shipping. I do. And like I said, I showed you the pictures. If that's no indication, I don't know what is. So, to me, it's just my opinion of probably many fans out there who prefer certain ones. I mean, you got someone on YouTube that did a Tanya Nosedive video. Go figure. But then again, you can't really blame them for that, because practically you have Tanya and Nosedive always teamed up together in the series, so it makes you indicate in that direction. But still, you had just as many with Mallory and Dive as well. So, again, that's just me. Again, it's just my opinion. It's just me. So, let me know what you guys think. But, as the title says, why I believe Disney was hinting at a Nosedive Mallory relationship in Mighty Ducks. So, let me know what you guys think down below. Comment if you like. I'll talk to you.